welcome back to another new edition of Windows and Current Affairs. And today we talk about a very important event that took place earlier Monday and Tuesday. It's a conference on Dar al-Ifta' or the House of Ifta' and sustainable development. Of course, the direct relation between Ifta' and the science of religion and sustainable development. They are part and parcel of each other. How is it that? We're going to find it out in full detail. We're very delighted to be having with us Mrs. Heba Salah. She is a researcher and interpreter, Egypt's Dar al-Ifta'. Good evening. How are you doing? Ms. Salah, you generally, you organized this very important event that took place Monday and Tuesday and under the topic which is a very, very vital topic, which is the al-Ifta' and or preaching and sustainable development. Of course, we're in full recognition that sustainable development is a method or a principle or a bunch of goals, 17 goals that everybody should be aware of.
Yes.
On every front, in economy, in culture, in politics, in science, in whatever we're doing to in the coming future, we should be applying or taking heed to execute the goals, 17 goals of sustainable development. Also religion has to have a relation with it. If you like to shed the light on this, a quick briefing over that, and then we'll get into detail about the conference.
Sure. It's my pleasure to be with you tonight.
Thank you so much.
Actually, the title, we can talk about three main points. First, the title of this year's conference, Fatwa or Ifta' and the goals of sustainable development goals. So we have indirect message to say or to tell the world that religion is in the core of these 17 goals that the United Nations have agreed on in 2015. The second is the timing of the conference. Actually, the conference was held 2 weeks prior to the COP27 on climate change that will be held in Sharm el-Sheikh next November. So I think the timing is very specific and very distinguished timing. The third point is the issues and the topics that come every year in such international conference that's held by Egypt's Dar al-Ifta' under the umbrella of the General Secretariat for Fatwa Authorities worldwide. And this year's conference, actually, as you just said, has a very special impression or unique significance concerning the 17 goals. Sustainable development goals, I think the term itself started to be more known to people, especially those on social media. When you talk about development in general, everyone knows what's development. But what about the issue of sustainability? So when we come and link religion with the idea of sustainability, you can think or you can figure out that religion comes for the well-being of people. And this is the core of the idea of sustainability. For example, if we pray every day, for example, whether we pray in the church or pray in the mosque, this is a sustainable relationship between the servant and the Lord or the Creator. So I think the link between sustainability and religion, it's a strong bond, it's a strong relationship. The idea is how we apply this to reality, how this sustainable relation between development and religion can be reflected in the communities we are living in. This was the main theme or the main agenda for this year's conference.
It was the main theme, but let us shed some light over the timing that coincides or coming prior with 1 or 2 weeks before the COP27 that is expected in Sharm el-Sheikh, inshallah. Talk to us about the importance of the timing of this conference.
Yes. As you know that the political leadership or President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, by the way, the conference was held under the patronage or auspices of His Excellency Mr. Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. And actually this happens every year with the international conference held by Egypt Dar al-Ifta. And as I just said, that this year's conference has a special uniqueness due to its timing, hosting just big event in Sharm el-Sheikh to address a global issue like climate change, and everyone is affected over the world by the climate change, actually is an honor that's given to the leadership in Egypt. So we at Dar al-Ifta had the initiative to raise awareness on these issues through our conference. The conference was helping scholars and muftis from more than 90 countries around the world who attended the conference over past Monday and Tuesday to raise awareness on these issues relating to sustainable development goals. Actually, we have representatives from United Nations in Geneva, and we have representatives from WHO who shared thoughts and ideas and statistics about the things they can do and what they did actually in their organizations about the ideas of sustainable development goals. So I think this was like a small gathering which preparing or for the upcoming. So Egypt managed to host this conference. So we will inshallah have the privilege and have a successful summit in November. Religion and life, as I said, there is a strong link between religion and life. So we started to touch upon
its principles.
Yes, to touch upon the principles or the goals of the 17 goals through the religious lens, how to see this and apply this to religion. Let me give you an example when we talk about number one, the goal number one about ending poverty. So when you come and say and measure this with religion, you will find in Islam the principles, for example, of zakah or the principles of charity or sadaqah. So this is the economic part or the economic perspective of the religion. When you talk about, for example, about the goal number 5, achieving equality among gender, achieving gender equality, and ending discrimination between men and women.
Islam was the first.
Yes, yes.
And gender equality.
Yes, you will find that Islam calls for equity. We call in Arabic adl.
And ended slavery.
And to end slavery.
And came with the Wathiqa, or the first constitution
in Medina,
in
the constitution of Medina. So you will find a strong link between the 17 goals and the principles of religion. That's why the conference was keen also through the workshops. We had 3 workshops held on the sidelines of the conference. The first was addressing the obstacles that might find in the community or the scholar might find when they are applying these goals in their communities. And the second workshop, I participated in the second workshop, and it was addressing very, very crucial idea about the relation or the integration between religious science or Sharia science and social and natural science. And the workshop gathered so many scholars from different fields and different aspects who shared ideas for 90 minutes, shared ideas, what should we do as scholars to have this integration successful. And the last one was very distinguished, using artificial intelligence in achieving this link or harmony between religion and achieving sustainable development goals. So the conference touched upon very, very important and very up-to-date issues that's addressing the global issues in our world today.
Right. Also, the objectives of the conference were very, very interesting. If you like to shed light or elaborate more in detail about the objectives of the conference.
Yes, as you said, it was the very, in a nutshell, the main goal was to achieve networking between fatwa authorities and scholars worldwide, and to gather them under one umbrella to address these goals in a religious perspective, and addressing these perspective from the cultural perspective, environmental, economic, social, so to cover all these aspects. Second is to provide training. Egypt Dar al-Ifta, under the umbrella of General Secretariat for Fatwa Authorities, is giving training to the muftis and scholars on the craft of issuing fatwa. Issuing fatwa is an art. It's a craft.
And it's not easy also.
It's not easy. And there are specific tools that every scholar should possess and should have before going to this process.
Right, and to my knowledge is that also, which is very important point, that not every scholar
is qualified for
fatwa. Talk to us about this important thing, because the mere fact that fatwa is also a two-sided weapon. When it comes from the wrong person, it's a disaster. It could destruct whole nations.
Yes.
Not only societies, whole nations. It could affect into conflicts. It could disrespect religions. It could misrepresent or tarnish the image
distort the image of Islam in general.
Islam, and that's what we have seen with Daesh and all those people, the militant groups with, of course, with political interests, and they call it fatwa. So talk to us about the rules for fatwa and how a scholar is prepared to be qualified to give a fatwa.
Yes, there is a rule I would like to share. One of the fuqaha or scholars or jurists said, never dare to give a fatwa without a sound knowledge. If you don't possess the basics or the knowledge that qualify you to give fatwa, refrain. Just keep learning. That's what Egypt Dar al-Ifta is doing. The idea of providing training on the sound and moderate knowledge that a scholar or a faqih needs to give fatwa and have communication with people. A scholar or a mufti is like a physician. Like a physician, you give them the symptoms and you give them the case that you are living, and he starts to prescribe medicine or medication for that person. That's why Egypt Dar al-Ifta is very interested and works hard to provide this sound knowledge to avoid any distortion of the true essence of religion. As you just said, Daesh and other extremist groups have left the people, especially in the West, have distorted image about Islam. When we travel in any European countries, you find that having our hijabi women are being attacked for being or wearing a hijab.
But by the way, let me get in here and tell you that the people who attack people who are dressed in a veil or have a beard or something are exactly like the Daesh people. They are almost of two faces of one coin. I mean, people of other religions who attack people because of how they are dressed or because of their beliefs are very disrespectful.
Distortion. There is a distortion. This sort of Islamophobia that Muslims
because Islam does not apply this thinking
that people might find in the West. This is due to the misinterpretation of the Quran and Sunnah. This misinterpretation leave the people with distorted minds. What is Islam? A lady just told me 2 weeks ago that you said that Islam is a religion of peace, such and such. So why you're killing people? So this statement,
the mostly killed are Muslims.
She summed up the distorted conceptions that those terrorist groups or those extremists have created and promoted. That's why we are trying to have a basis of or a big network of scholars and muftis through the
To
work
be able
of
to clear it up.
yes,
But at the same time, I mean, I don't think this is, I mean, rational when a European would ask, didn't you say that Islam is a cause for peace and you're killing people? If they read enough, if they are aware enough, they should clearly see,
yes,
people who come with a good cultural background,
yeah,
that mostly the victims for those who call themselves Muslims are Muslims,
yeah,
because Daesh and the I mean terrorist groups, those terrorist groups are going in the Middle East and in the Arab countries. They're killing the defenseless Muslims and the families and the women and
yes,
the children. They're not killing I mean non-Muslims. They're not killing Israelis.
no, no,
They're not killing anyone but Muslims.
yes.
So they should think about it and know that those are not Muslims.
It's idea of awareness. That's why at Dar al-Ifta we established a Salam Center for fighting these extremist groups. And last June we had the first international conference held by Salam Center, and we have a very distinguished and unique exhibition that debunk all these distorted meanings and ideas. And this was a work that we have been working over the past 10 years, so to correct these misconceptions. But the idea is that we need to go through the channel of sustainability. That's why in this year's conference we working on the agenda of sustainability to guarantee that these ideas and these work we are working through the work of Dar al-Ifta will go further and further in a stable steps until we reach our goal. Because as you said in the beginning, that the 17 goals, the Grand Mufti in his closing remarks said that the 17 goals of the Sustainable Development Goals are accepted by all religions and accepted by Islam, with a special focus to give to the nature of every religion and cultural issues regarding some points or some issues that suit every community. So I think this year's conference is the starting point, as we see, a starting point for an era of new understanding and application of the fatwa, or the issue of the question and answer in the Muslim world as a whole.
Exactly, and something else also which is worth mentioning is that if we look over the 17 goals, the most pressing or the most the ones that they come with priorities on the list, which is the gender equality, and which is the food security, which is the environmental issues, and I mean standing to climate change, and I mean many good goals are used to come on top of the concern of Muslims by the time of Prophet Muhammad.
Yes, sure.
And he even included them in Al-Wasiqa when he came over to Al-Madinah, and he was the first one to call for respecting the environment, respecting the species right and animal rights, and respecting women's rights and children's rights, and liberating I mean rejecting the idea of slavery, and distributing food over everybody equally. I mean all those goals and all those I mean issues or principles were taken by the time of Prophet Muhammad. But let's talk about the objectives of the conference and how importantly or strongly it is related to fatwa.
Yes.
How does that come?
Yes, as I said, that in the second workshop of the conference we were discussing the issue of connecting and networking between scholars of different aspects, from economic sphere, from the social science, from the psychological science, to link this to the fatwa. As I said, the fatwa is mainly consists of a question and an answer. A question, as a questioner, I have something that disturbing my mind, I need to know its ruling of the Sharia, so I'm coming. There is a very important thing I want to mention, that fatwa changes, or the answer we are taking from Dar al-Ifta changes according to the change of time, people and places. For example, the issue that has a certain ruling in a specific time under specific circumstances cannot be applied to some other people in different place in a different time. You can, for example, yes, you can, for example, have an issue like me, and the Mufti gives you an answer that's different from the one he gives me.
What's work for me that might not work for you.
What's work for Heba does not work for you.
Which is, in other words, if you interpret it, it's tolerance.
Yes, that's why the fatwa changes according to people, time and places. This is the very important thing that a Mufti or a scholar should learn as ABC tools for issuing a fatwa.
Let me focus on this. Why was it affected or made in Islam, or created, that a fatwa is made according to time and place and people and everything? Because of what?
Because of, as you said, tolerance, and to put into account the best interest of people. Because there is a very important rule. Where there is a well-being of people, the Sharia or Islamic law supports it. So anything that brings well-being to people and comes in their best interest, the Sharia or Islamic law
very
supports
respectable
supports it.
Wish that you could promote for this.
Yes, this is the core of humanity. If you read carefully the 17 goals of Sustainable Development Goals, you can sum up the idea that they are addressing humanity, the human being. And this human being, or this mankind, is really honored in Islam. The Quran says that we have honored, God Almighty says, we have honored mankind and provide them and carried them in the sea and on land. So that's why this man that God created by his own hands and let the whole universe under their service is honored to the point that this fatwa and this ruling of the Sharia comes to achieve his best interest. God never created us to impose something that will harm us. We will never impose hardship on you.
Or might not work with our situations.
This is the Quran. That's why I said the fatwa is an art. It needs a good artist. And here the artist is the Mufti or the scholar.
A very tolerant man.
Yes, who is like a physician. He should have the character or the skill to listen very carefully and give the ruling according to the way or the circumstances he or she is hearing. By the way, a Mufti can be a male or female. In Islam, fatwa or issuing a fatwa is open for both men and women, provided they possess the knowledge or the tools that qualify them to practice this craft, or to give people the light they need for their life.
Right, and also to prove something to people who are also are giving or tarnishing the image of Islam, is that أن الدين عسر وليس يسر، أن الدين يسر وليس عسر, which is Islam makes things facilitate life.
And this is a prophetic tradition. Make things easy for people and never make things difficult, or do not impose hardship.
It does not complicate, but on the other hand, it facilitates.
Yes. Let me give you an example that I remember.
Yes.
Once the Prophet, peace and the blessings be upon him, was sitting in a gathering with the companions in the mosque, in his mosque in Medina, and Islam was new to this community. So one of the Bedouins, who does not have the culture of how to use the mosque, came and urinated in the place. So the companions of the Prophet was really teased by this situation, and one of them just wanted to tease the man and
became
give
aggressive.
him a hard time. So the Prophet calmed him. He told them, just give him until he finish, and I will go to talk to him. So until the man finished urinating, the Prophet went so calmly, and he told them, mosques are not dedicated for doing this. This should not be done in the mosque. So the Bedouin was very embarrassed and felt that he did something wrong, but the Prophet didn't use a violent word or something that hurt the feelings of the man. And then he ordered some people in the mosque just to bring water and clean it, and that's it. This situation can give us a very, very, very good example or a very good lesson that Islam is the religion of tolerance. We will never introduce Islam by violence. We will never introduce Islam by making fun of others. You know, that's why every parent in every Muslim family should raise their children on the core of Islam, that Islam means tolerance and respecting the other. That is what we doing through giving the fatwa. When you are giving the fatwa, you are respecting the privacy of the person who come and shared with the mufti a very, very, very private secrets. If a man and his wife comes to share something about their life or their marital life or their very private life, and you have a question, so the mufti is trusted and entrusted to keep this privacy away from anything that might hurt the feelings of these people. That's why it's a craft, and that's why it needs high levels of respect to the other, which is the core of Islam.
Let's talk about the important workshops that it came to our knowledge that there were very interesting workshops that were held aside the conference during the two-day conference. Talk to us in detail about the workshops.
The first workshop was held on the first day of the conference on Monday around the afternoon, and it was about the obstacles that might come on the way of linking religion and sustainable development goals. It's idea of raising awareness, how as a scholar or as a mufti I should have the knowledge of what is going around me in the world. In some areas here in Egypt, some scholars or some muftis keep themselves in a bubble. He or she doesn't want to know what is going on. I just want to live the life in an ivory tower, and this is wrong. This is not accepted in the time of smart device and social media. And a mufti should have a good link with what is going around the world. So the first workshop was dedicated to this, how to link the different aspects of life, the economic, the environmental, and the other aspects of life, to the fatwa in relation to the sustainable development goals. And the second workshop, as I said, is that integration, how to build bridges of understanding, how to have a strong network between the scholar, the faqih, and psychologist, and social science scholar, and economic sphere, you know. Because let me give me an example when it comes to talk about the modern ways of plastic surgery and these things that girls are interested in. So a mufti should know what is going on in this field. In order to give you a fatwa on microblading and whatsoever, these things that might people, have fun, what are you asking about? The Prophet, peace and the blessing be
You
upon
should be
him.
updated with the, I mean, modern life and
yes, you should have knowledge of every single new thing that come to life, and never belittle the idea of learning. A mufti is a constant learner. He keeps learning, and it's it's a sustainable idea of seeking knowledge. I ever say that sustainability is a sustainability of seeking knowledge. And Islam puts priority and express and put the idea of knowledge in a very high rank. So seek knowledge or seeking knowledge is obligatory for every female and male Muslim. This is a prophetic tradition.
Right.
So this is the second workshop. It was about the idea of integration. I have to have a link. If a scholar was asked, for example, about what's the ruling of a woman who is working and her husband is asking her to provide for the family. This is a new issue because many women have going to work nowadays, and we have a social issue that some men are thinking that it's duty and obligatory for a woman to provide for the family. So if a mufti is not aware that these are the current issues that going on between men and women in the society, he might tell the wife that you will be disobedient if you didn't obey your wife, and obeying your man is such and such. This is true in Islam, but it is not applied to this context. You know, that's why a mufti should be aware of what's going on, and if I don't know the answer, it's not a shame to ask someone in the social science area to get their knowledge. The last one, as I said, the last workshop was about artificial intelligence. We at Egypt Dar al-Ifta is very interested and keen to use the digital world in providing a sound and moderate knowledge for people, and especially youth. The youth is a focus of our interest by this knowledge. So artificial intelligence, I think this is the talk of our world today. So we were seeking through this workshop how to link these artificial intelligence and benefit from this technology in linking between the natural science, the ifta science, social science, and finally achieving sustainable development goals according to this religious perspective.
We only have very little time, about like 3 minutes left, but we need also to talk about the resolutions. How did the conference end up to?
Yeah.
And how is that going to be implicated over the centers of ifta worldwide?
It was the recommendations, 17 recommendations. The most important of which was the networking between scholars who attended the conference and others who are members of the General Secretariat for Fatwa Authorities worldwide. This networking starts through a charter of sustainable development goals. We call it the Charter of Sustainable Development Goals, that to start applying, as you said, the principles of Islam through these goals and reflect it on the goals and then apply it to day-to-day life. The second important thing is that the Grand Mufti called upon the Fatwa authorities worldwide to provide us with any feedback they did on the ground concerning these issues, so we can share together under the umbrella of Egypt Dar al-Ifta what has been done in this field till the next year. And through 12 months, we will have a feedback what we achieved as muftis and scholar. And the other thing which is important is that we will provide, or Dar al-Ifta will provide training to muftis to link this sustainable development goals to fatwa.
Great, amazing on this great news.
And by the way, starting from the next day, starting from Wednesday, we started implementing, implementing these things, and we started to form committees, and every committee will work on a certain commandment to start working in a group work for achieving this as soon as possible.
Amazing. Wishing you all the best of luck. Mrs. Heba Salah, you are a researcher and interpreter, Egypt Dar al-Ifta. All the best to you and to Dar al-Ifta.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
It was a pleasure seeing you. Thank you.
Thank you. My real pleasure. And I guess this would bring us to the end of this edition of Windows and Current Affairs. Many thanks to all of you. Until we see you again next week, that's a goodbye.